everyone, welcome back. My name is Cureton, senior journalist for XR Today, and we are always bringing you the latest and greatest from the XR, VR, and AR industry. And today we have on very special guests. We have William Huang, is the chief executive and co-founder of Lunar Market, and Jack Cameron, Lunar Market's co-founder and chief operating officer. So thanks, guys, for joining us today. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Daman. Always a pleasure.
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to crack on. We want to talk a little bit about NFTs. This is our main theme for this month. And wanted to ask you guys, since you are pretty much well engrossed into this type of topic, what are digital assets for you? And why are they such a viable commodity for generating content across Metaverse platforms, digital real estate, and other places?
Totally. I think a lot of what NFTs are interesting for me personally is just the idea of digital ownership. The fact that I think for the first time you can actually verifiably prove that you own something digitally. So you can think about like, how do you own like a JPEG? How do you own like a video format, MP4? All of that digital ownership can now kind of be verified on blockchain directly. And I think that's what, people are really kind of feeling in touch with. Right. And I think you start off with like NBA Top Shot, where people are owning moments of like, sports glory, Vince Carter's last shot, LeBron, shooting like a fadeaway three, like, things that people get excited about and like something that they can show off to their friends. That's where it kind of all started. And now it's transitioning more to be like, I think more experiential and like with, even for brands that are coming into the space, like a way for them to build like loyalty digitally, and also for creators and brands to start thinking about, okay, I have like a physical presence like in the real world, and how do I transition that into like an increasingly more digital world?
That's it. Nice. Any thoughts on that, Jack?
No, yeah, as Billy saying, like digital ownership, even though it's so philosophical, it's also super interesting. Being able to actually have something in my wallet and feel like this is mine, no one can take it from me unless I get hacked. It is an interesting idea. I also think from like an activation standpoint, we talk a lot about like gaming and NFTs, right? The breaking down the barriers of like one-way economies that kind of like have defined gaming and metaverse for quite a while now. The idea that I could purchase an asset and then exit that asset at any point is something that's really interesting. You can't do that with Fortnite. You can't do that with League of Legends, right? All the other big gaming companies out there don't allow for two-way economies. So yeah, it goes on to that like ownership idea of like, wow, this is actually mine. I can really do what I want with it. Is really amazing.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of articles, especially about digital ownership and also the digital rights, your digital footprint, using either an avatar or an NFT, a bit of blockchain, gives you the chance to actually have your own presence in the metaverse, which is uniquely to your own. And I think we'll see a lot of those new technologies being, built over the next few years, so that way people can really take ownership of their digital selves, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like I saw an article today about Meta wanting to charge 50% of everything that they sell on their platform. And I immediately, when I thought of that, and I was like, this is why NFTs exist, because like the fact that if you all of your digital ownership is reliant on like Meta or Facebook, like what type of world is that? And like, you don't have that freedom to decide like who you want to be versus, like some other company telling you like what you can or cannot say, right? And I think that's something that we see a lot even in like the content space, like YouTube banning like creators, right? Taking down content that doesn't belong to you, bring down content without really needing to say why or how, or even like, Twitch banning streamers without needing any type of say so, like taking back the control from a lot of these like larger tech enterprises and like democratizing it in a sense.
Yeah, wasn't it Destiny that was recently banned from Twitch?
Yeah.
For his own views and whatnot. But Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's definitely a topic for the rabbit hole.
For
Yeah.
sure. Definitely. For sure. For sure.
Okay. So I wanted to get into, I guess, the next question for you guys. We talk about detractors of the metaverse. So we assume that, gaming and entertainment will drive the market, but there's a different utility to the metaverse and to these types of technologies that are, probably very, very useful to people. What are some of those things that you have noted in creating your own platform?
Totally. I think, you know, AR and XR is like a massively emerging space, and it's interesting because a lot of the companies that are building on top of it is just starting to explore kind of NFTs. So I think like the marriage there is really interesting. We've worked with a company called HoloLoot, and they're building like an AR VR NFT marketplace, which we think is like a very interesting application of the idea that you can own like an AR object or an XR VR object, and then that's like only usable by you. Or in a more mainstream sense, like what if you can own a Snapchat filter, right? That like only you can put on, and like what if only you're able to kind of put that thing on top of your things. I think even from like a content perspective, that opens a lot of gateways, and I think it's like a new space that not a lot of people are fully exploring. But I imagine that the space will become more saturated as NFT technology become more popular.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think one thing I think is really cool is like the whole movement of doing like work from the metaverse, seeing people
Hmm.
do like office meetings, etc. I think like people underestimate how big that market will be. I think people are sick of Zoom, but also people do love working from home. And I think there is a middle ground with like VR, AR, and metaverse meetings that will allow people and work to shift in a really interesting way that actually will help push the metaverse forward because it's your job if you have to be there. It creates player count and it makes a real possibility to expand what the metaverse should and can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Microsoft that recently came up with an idea or concept of, well, they didn't come up with the concept, but they mentioned it, serious gaming, where you can actually take different use cases for the gaming technologies and then apply those to, new solutions that are developed for the metaverse, whether it's infrastructure, cloud computing, and other types of technologies. So I think as we see people develop, those things, we'll be able to have new and improved types of useful tools that people can use in their own platforms. And then the metaverse will just take off and grow from there. So yeah, interesting points. So we can talk a little bit more in depth about Luna Market. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of that platform. What are the technical specifications for your technologies? Like which specific blockchains or cloud computing or any other types of technologies that you use to, create your business?
Yeah, totally. So from an NFT standpoint, we mostly work in Ethereum and Polygon. So mostly like we're thinking about NFTs that can be built on top of like Ethereum virtual machine based blockchains. So we like to work on top those types of architectures just because it's you know I guess like audited. It's like a lot safer than a lot of these new blockchains where if you're making like smart contracts on top of them, you don't exactly know if there are like risks in terms of cybersecurity. So we like that there's like battle tested behind like EVM based blockchains. But in terms of like what it does, so our blockchain kind of combines two worlds. One is kind of the brands that we work with WPP. We work with Under Armour and we work with Animoca brands, and then helping them kind of transition their products into the digital space. So a lot of what we do is like the creative production tools that it takes to kind of build metaverse items, build like gaming items, like from a brand's perspective, and then having those flow directly into the other side of the equation, which is the gaming ecosystems. So our platform really is to kind of help service a lot of these like partnerships that you will see. I think like a good example is like when Wendy's did the campaign inside Fortnite with Little Red Riding Hood, where they had like the Little Red Riding Hood going inside games and like breaking down fridges, right? Like how do you service those types of campaigns? How do you get people engaged, with your brand virtually, and then allowing creators to essentially like create digital products like a lot more seamlessly. I think a function of that also helps to kind of service like the mainstream adoption of NFTs, because as more brands try to enter the space, you're going to have more investment, more capital kind of just being poured into kind of making sure that it's safe for consumers. Like the compliance side will also, catch up eventually to ensure that, people today, like when they get like scammed, a lot of that is just because the infrastructure, the education isn't there. But kind of as we've seen like the mainstream adoption of NFTs and the utility of them, being able to kind of onboard the next generation of NFT users is really where we're trying to tackle.
Nice. Jack, any thoughts on that one?
Oh yeah, our whole platform is about like scalable integration of digital products across multiple metaverses. Like when we came up with the idea for Luna, it was like kind of taking a step back. It was on your comment about like digital personas. You have all these avatars, right? You have Sandbox avatar, you have Artifacts avatar, you have Ready Player Me's avatar, right? You have all these different standards. So how can a brand be risk averse? How can they enter what we call the metaverse without committing to one type of standard, right? Are they going to build in voxel for Sandbox? Are they going to build in high resolution? Are they going to build in Ready Player Me? Why can't we enable a brand to deploy assets across multiple standards and across multiple metaverses, right? That's kind of the core of the idea. That's why with Under Armour, which was our first major campaign, one shoe to go across multiple metaverses, different art styles, different use cases, but again, like one product being able to be used in multiple spots. And from an advertising and marketing stance, like right, reach is everything. So we think reach and interoperability are actually kind of like interchangeable in terms of the world of marketing, and that word I think is going to be more and more prevalent as time goes by.
Right. Yeah. Because when we saw Web 2.0 developed, we had basically the internet, and there was a standardization protocol for all of those, which allows us to go on any website that we need to access. Notwithstanding a lot of the ones that are actually blocked from access based on a state or country basis, sorry. So, we look at Web 3.0 as it's being built, and we realize that there is no standardization protocol at all. So it's just a lot of companies building and developing a lot of their platforms, and, it's kind of like a free-for-all at this point. So there need to be those standards in place for these companies to all work together.
Absolutely. I think you make like such an interesting point, which is like you have like HTTPS and like DNS like needing to be built before you can reach like consumer in a safe way. And I think right now it's just like the internet before HTTP has existed, right? So like if you're doing like credit card transactions, like how do you know that it's like completely safe? And I think you have this slow. Actually, it's not that slow anymore, but as more capital, more people, leaving traditional companies who work on Web3, like you'll see a lot of these advancements kind of accelerating, which is really exciting because you can really take like NFTs anywhere you want to go. In AR and XR, in gaming, in art, and we see in music, like we see all of these different types of standards being created for each like specific vertical, which is really exciting.
Nice. Yeah, cool. Was going to go to one thing that I wanted to ask you about. We talk a little bit about the partnerships that you've got for your company. And so both of you and Jack, you've been working really hard to strike these partnerships. You mentioned Under Armour. And could you tell us a little bit more about some of the other partnerships that you've got? And what does this say about the importance of the services that you've got to offer? And how do you plan to monetize this in the near future?
Totally. Jack, do you want to jump in?
Yeah.
You love it.
Yeah. Partnership side it's a combination of everything, right? Being a middleman, you have to like work with all types of companies from Animoca Brands, which is an investor in our company, to Polygon, who's also an investor in our company, to WPP and the host of agencies that they have inside their holding company that we work on a contract basis with to service a bunch of different brands. We are obviously continuing our relationship with Under Armour. They got really excited about the metaverse and the possibility to do digital products. So that's kind of like how we're expanding there. We also have a whole host of other brands that we should be dropping projects for in the near future. Obviously, they will not be the happiest if I leak it, but I think we have to be quiet. But there's a lot to happen really quickly, and most of them are like higher blue chip brands that want to get into space rather than people who might be more experimental because they're smaller brands. These ones especially that we're working with are blue chip people, and they're looking to do long and meaningful metaverse and NFT campaigns that will come out soon, as everyone in the NFT space says, soon.
Exactly. And I think to kind of jump in on the financial aspects, part of what we want to champion as part of our platform is that, as the ecosystem grows, like so should the participants, right? Like the way that money flows today isn't exactly equal. Like we know that, centralized platforms usually take most of it and then the creators get left with the crumbs. And so it's really about like democratizing like the ability for creators to really define their own niche. Like if they have their own, like sub niches of people who want to buy their products and they're building on top of the existing standards, they should be paid accordingly. And those royalty splits should be, fair and equal across like the people, based on like what they're putting into the product. Right. And something that we do is that, gaming platforms that integrate with our platform gets like a base of 1.5% of like the marketplace volume. And then, that could go up depending on like how many more users that they have bringing onto the platform. Creators get to set their own royalties so that they get to say how much they're charging for anything, and for subsequent trading volume that occurs on their collections and the digital products that they create, they also kind of reap secondary benefits from like all the trading activity that happens. And so for us, it's really thinking about like how can we make sure we have this opportunity to really redefine how like the financial aspects of this all work out, and like making sure that it's incentivizing everybody more equally versus like these like more traditional platforms.
Absolutely. Yes, in the decentralized world or the decentralized virtual world, we'll want that democracy to kind of continue as people begin to develop their platforms, because you want equal pay or equal access to the metaverse. You want people to receive the royalties that they deserve for their creative content, because that's going to be one of the driving forces for a lot of these different platforms. And there's actually a large lack of creative content developers that can work with these products or that can work with these platforms. So that's going to be the main thing they want to kind of foster as things develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's super important too, right? Because like you think about like YouTube or Spotify streaming models, and like we have a friend who's like a Sony level artist, and like he like needs to make I think 1 million streams before he makes like dollars on the penny, right? Which is like kind of an insane like thing, because Spotify is getting like 1 million listens, but like what does he get, right? And like there's that kind of like power leveling that needs to kind of happen for people to want to do these things, so you can create more things that are beautiful in the metaverse that in ways that you can't before, just by shifting like the power dynamics around a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, wonderful insights from both of you. I really appreciate it. So is there anything else you want to have, maybe a minute or so, to kind of like cap up what we've discussed today?
We
Or
have another Under Armour project that is coming out soon. So that's kind of the next big thing for people to kind of watch out for, as we kind of like hope to create some cool things like on their behalf. And we're going to be working with them for a little bit, at least a little bit longer, to help them kind of usher their new products into the digital space. So just want people to know that we're still building, and it's going to be coming.
nice.
I echo that. I love NFTs, and I'm kidding. I think the space is becoming more and more interesting every single day, and I don't think anyone should be afraid or fearful of what's to come. I think um, like people like me and Billy spend our day like trying to think of like what are the problems that exist with all these gaming and NFT environments, and how do we connect them together. I think there's a lot of smart people working on it, and I hope soon the metaverse that we all saw in like maybe Ready Player Me or Ready Player One, where all the spaces are connected. Fingers crossed that comes to reality soon. So
Yeah, we want the Ready Player Me, not the Ready Player One. Okay, thanks so much for coming on today, guys. I really appreciate it. And so once again, we've been speaking to William Huang, Chief Executive and co-founder of Lunar Market, and Jack Cameron, Lunar Market's co-founder and Chief Operating Officer. So once again, if you guys enjoyed today's conversations, please like, share, and subscribe to our content so that you can always be kept in the loop. Feel free to also spread the word of our conversations from XR Today with the XR News hashtag on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So once again, I'm Damon Cureton, Senior Journalist. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great one.
Thank you so much,
thank you.
Aman. Take it easy. Bye, everyone.
Bye now.